Nina's fingers froze in Dylan's hair, her breath catching as she felt something sharp, metallic, wrong. She pulled her hand back and saw blood on her fingertips. Not Dylan's blood from a fresh wound, but dried, dark, crusted around small metal points embedded directly into the boy's scalp. Her vision blurred. Dozens of them, deliberately placed, methodically cruel. Dylan's small voice broke the silence. "Please don't tell my dad. They said they'd hurt him too." Nina's hands trembled as 11-year-old Dylan Sullivan sat perfectly still, enduring agony that no child should ever know, suffering behind a curtain of overgrown hair that hid a secret so horrifying it would shatter a father's heart and force a broken woman to face the demons she'd been running from for 5 years. Before we continue, please hit that subscribe button and stay with me until the very end of this story. Comment below with your city so I can see how far this message of hope and courage travels. Now, let's begin. The wrench slipped from Reaper's oil-stained hands, clattering against the concrete floor of his garage. He didn't bother picking it up. His eyes were fixed on the doorway where his son had just appeared, backpack dragging on the ground behind him like it weighed 100 pounds. "Dylan?" The boy didn't look up, didn't acknowledge his father's voice, just kept walking, head down, that mess of dark hair falling forward like a shield. Reaper wiped his hands on his jeans, leaving black smears across the denim. "How was school, buddy?" "Nothing." Dylan dropped his backpack beside the workbench and climbed onto the old stool Reaper had set up for him months ago. The stool where Dylan used to sit and show off his photographs, talking a mile a minute about light and shadows and composition. Now the camera bag sat unopened. "You hungry? I could run across the street, grab us some—" "Not hungry." 2 words, barely audible. Reaper's jaw tightened. This had been going on for 3 weeks now. 3 weeks of silence, of withdrawn shoulders, of his boy shrinking into himself like he was trying to disappear. "Dylan, talk to me. What's going on?" "Nothing." "Don't give me nothing. I know something's—" "I said nothing." Dylan's voice cracked, and he hunched further forward, arms wrapped around his stomach. Reaper started to move closer, reached out to touch his son's shoulder, and Dylan flinched. Actually flinched away from his own father's hand. The movement hit Reaper like a punch to the gut. He pulled his hand back, that old familiar rage starting to simmer in his chest. Not at Dylan, never at Dylan, but at whatever or whoever was causing this. "Okay," Reaper said softly, forcing his voice to stay level. "Okay, buddy, it's Tuesday. Lou's Diner night, remember? Your favorite." Dylan's shoulders moved slightly. Not quite a shrug, but not quite agreement either. "Come on, Nina always saves us the corner booth. She's probably got that chocolate cream pie you like." Finally, Dylan slid off the stool. Moved like an old man, careful and slow. Reaper noticed how he held his head at a strange angle, like turning his neck caused pain. "You hurt yourself?" "No." "Your neck looks—" "I said I'm fine." Dylan's voice, pitched high, was something that sounded like panic. "Can we just go?" Reaper grabbed his leather jacket from the hook by the door. The old Iron Brotherhood patch on the back faded from years and distance. He didn't wear the colors anymore, hadn't for almost 4 years, but he couldn't quite bring himself to throw the jacket away. Some things stayed with you, whether you wanted them to or not. The walk to Lou's Diner was silent. Reaper kept pace with Dylan's slow shuffle, his mind racing through possibilities. Bullying. Had to be bullying. But Dylan wouldn't talk about it, wouldn't let Reaper near enough to help. His phone buzzed. Text from Axel, his old VP from the Brotherhood. "Heard you got problems. Say the word, brother. We handle it the old way." Reaper deleted the message without responding. The old way. Violence and vengeance and blood. That's what his son expected from him, wasn't it? That's why Dylan was pulling away. Because everyone knew what Reaper used to be, what he was capable of. The diner's bell chimed as they entered. Warm air, coffee smell, the sizzle of burgers on the grill. Lou's roadside diner hadn't changed in 30 years, and that's exactly why Reaper liked it. Consistent, safe, normal. Well, look who's here. Nina Morales emerged from behind the counter, menus in hand, that warm smile on her face that always made Reaper's chest feel strange. Right on time for Tuesday dinner. Hey, Nina. Reaper managed a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Nina's smile faltered when she looked at Dylan. Reaper saw it happen, saw her trained eye, the eye of someone who'd spent years learning to spot trouble, catch on his son's posture, the way Dylan kept his head down, the tension in his small frame. Hey there, Dylan, she said softly. Got your favorite booth already, and I might have convinced Lou to make extra whipped cream for your hot chocolate. Dylan mumbled something that might have been thanks. They slid into the corner booth, Dylan taking his usual spot, facing the wall. Reaper sat across from him, watching his son's reflection in the window. The kid looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, skin pale, that hair grown out wild and unkempt, when Dylan used to be so particular about his appearance. Usual? Nina asked, pulling out her order pad. Yeah, double cheeseburger for me. Dylan, you want your grilled cheese? Dylan nodded without looking up. Nina scribbled on her pad, but her eyes stayed on Dylan. Reaper caught her gaze, saw the question there, the concern. He gave a tiny shake of his head. I don't know either. Be right back with drinks, Nina said. She returned a few minutes later with Reaper's coffee and a hot chocolate topped with what had to be half a can of whipped cream. She set the mug in front of Dylan carefully, and Reaper saw her hand hover for just a moment, like she wanted to touch the boy's shoulder but thought better of it. There you go, sweetheart. Dylan reached for the mug, and his hand trembled so badly the whipped cream nearly sloshed over the side. Nina's sharp intake of breath was barely audible, but Reaper heard it. You okay, honey? Nina asked. Fine, Dylan whispered. You sure? Because... He said he's fine. Reaper didn't mean for it to come out harsh, but the frustration of 3 weeks of this was getting to him. Sorry, Nina. It's just been a rough day. No, I get it. But Nina's eyes stayed on Dylan, and Reaper recognized that look. He'd seen it on social workers' faces when they'd come to his childhood home. That careful assessment, that professional concern masking deeper worry. She walked away to put in their order, but Reaper noticed she kept glancing back at their booth. Dylan, Reaper kept his voice low. Buddy, you gotta give me something here. I can't help if you won't talk to me. Don't need help. Your hands are shaking. So something's wrong. Is it school? Kids giving you trouble? Dylan's whole body went rigid. Bingo. What are they doing? Reaper pressed. What are they saying? Nothing. Dylan, I don't want to talk about it. Dylan's voice rose, then immediately dropped to a desperate whisper. Please, Dad. Please just let it go. The fear in his son's voice stopped Reaper cold. Not just anxiety, not just embarrassment, real, bone-deep fear. Okay, Reaper said quietly. Okay, we'll let it go for now. But he wasn't letting anything go. Soon as Dylan was asleep tonight, Reaper was making calls, finding out which kids went to Dylan's school, which fathers owed him favors, which teachers might talk. One way or another, he was getting to the bottom of this. Nina brought their food, setting plates down with practiced efficiency. 1 double cheeseburger with extra pickles. 1 grilled cheese, cut diagonal just how you like it, Dylan. Dylan stared at his plate like it was poisonous. Eat, Reaper said. You barely touched breakfast. Dylan picked up half the sandwich with trembling fingers, brought it toward his mouth, and then suddenly his whole face crumpled. He set the sandwich down carefully, hands gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles went white. A single tear slid down his cheek, then another. Dylan? Reaper started to stand, but Dylan shook his head violently. Don't, please don't. Reaper sat back down, feeling helpless in a way that made his skin crawl. He'd faced down armed men without flinching, But watching his son cry silently across a diner table broke something inside him. Nina appeared beside their booth, a rag in her hand. "Everything okay over here?" "We're fine," Reaper said automatically. "Dylan?" Nina crouched down beside the booth, putting herself at eye level with the boy. "Sweetie, are you feeling sick?" Dylan shook his head, still not looking up. "Headache?" A pause, then the tiniest nod. "Yeah, your head hurts?" Nina's voice went soft, motherly. "How long has it been hurting?" Dylan's lips moved, but no sound came out. "It's okay, baby, you can tell me." "Long time," Dylan finally whispered. "Hurts all the time now." Reaper's chest constricted. "Why didn't you say something?" Dylan didn't answer. Another tear fell, splashing onto his untouched grilled cheese. Nina stood up. "Tell you what, why don't you come help me in the back for a minute? I just got a shipment of art supplies I could use an expert opinion on. Your dad can finish his burger, and we'll get you feeling better. Sound good?" Dylan glanced at Reaper, seeking permission. "Go ahead, buddy. I'll be right here." Dylan slid out of the booth, moving like every step hurt. Nina put a gentle hand on his shoulder, or tried to. The moment her fingers made contact, Dylan let out a small, choked sound and jerked away. Nina's face went pale. Her eyes met Reaper's, and he saw something flicker there. Recognition, horror, understanding. "Come on, sweetheart," she said, her voice carefully controlled now. "Let's go look at those supplies." She led Dylan through the swinging door to the back area, and Reaper watched them go, that sick feeling in his gut getting stronger. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Axel. "Whatever it is, we're here. You know that." Reaper set the phone down, appetite gone. Through the window, he could see his reflection, could see the man he used to be hovering just beneath the surface. The enforcer, the problem solver, the one who used fists in fear to fix things. No, not this time. Dylan needed better than that, needed better than him. But God, he wanted to hurt someone, wanted to find whoever was making his boys suffer and teach them what real pain felt like. He forced himself to take a bite of burger. It tasted like cardboard. Minutes passed, 5, then 10. Reaper was about to get up and check on them when Nina pushed through the door alone. Her face was sheet white and her hands were shaking. Something was wrong, very wrong. "Nina?" She walked straight to him, pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. "I need you to come to the back room, right now." "What's going on?" "Just come, please." The way she said it, the raw fear and fury in her voice, got Reaper moving. He followed her through the door, down the short hallway past the kitchen where Lou worked the grill, into the storage room at the back. Dylan sat in a folding chair, his back to the door. Nina had draped a towel around his shoulders, and she'd started to cut his hair, sections of it lying on the floor around the chair. "I don't understand," Reaper said. "You're giving him a haircut." "Look," Nina whispered. "Just look." She gently lifted a section of Dylan's hair, parting it carefully. Reaper moved closer, leaning in to see what she was showing him. His brain couldn't process it at first, didn't want to process it. Small metal points, glinting under the fluorescent light, dozens of them, pushed into his son's scalp, some crusted with dried blood, some surrounded by angry, infected skin. Staples. Someone had stapled his son's head. "Oh, God," Reaper breathed. "Oh, God, Dylan." His knees went weak. He grabbed the wall to steady himself, bile rising in his throat. "How long?" His voice came out strangled. "How long have these been?" "Weeks," Nina said, her own voice breaking. "Some of them look weeks old, maybe longer." Reaper's vision blurred. Red crept in at the edges. His hands curled into fists, every muscle in his body coiling tight. "Who?" The word came out like a growl. "Who did this to you?" Dylan's shoulders shook. "Dad, tell me their names." "Marcus." Nina's hand on his arm, firm and grounding. "Marcus, breathe. You're scaring him." Reaper looked at his son, saw how Dylan had curled in on himself, terrified. Of the people who hurt him, yes, but also of his father's rage. He forced himself to step back, to unclench his fists, to breathe through the white-hot fury burning through his veins. "I'm sorry," he managed. "I'm sorry, buddy. I'm not mad at you. I could never be mad at you." "They said they'd hurt you," Dylan whispered, so quietly Reaper almost missed it. "If I told, they said you'd try to fight them, and you'd go to prison, and I'd be alone, and it would be my fault." "Jesus Christ!" Reaper's legs gave out. He sank to his knees on the cold floor, eye level with his son now. "Dylan, nothing is your fault. Nothing. Do you hear me?" "But they said—" "I don't care what they said. This is not your fault." Tears streamed down Dylan's face, and he finally looked up at his father. "It hurts, Dad. It hurts all the time." Something inside Reaper shattered. He reached out slowly, giving Dylan time to pull away, and when his son didn't flinch, he pulled the boy into his arms. Gentle, so gentle. Dylan collapsed against his chest, sobbing. "I've got you," Reaper said, his own tears falling into Dylan's hair. "I've got you, son. Nobody's ever going to hurt you again." Nina wiped her eyes, pulling out her phone. "We need to get him to the hospital. Now." "No!" Dylan pulled back, panic in his eyes. "No hospital. They'll ask questions and everyone will know. And they said if I told—" "Baby, these need to come out," Nina said gently. "They're infected. You could get really sick." "I don't care." "Well, I care," Reaper said, his voice rough. "And I'm your father, and we're going to the hospital." "Please." "No arguments. Nina's right. We go now." Nina was already on her phone, talking to someone about meeting them at the ER. Reaper stood, scooping Dylan up like he weighed nothing. The boy was too old to be carried, really, too big for it, but he buried his face in Reaper's shoulder and held on tight. "Lou," Nina called out, "I'm taking my break. Emergency." "Go," Lou's gruff voice called back. "Go, go, I got the floor." Nina grabbed her purse and car keys. "My car's closer, come on." The ride to Millbrook General took 12 minutes that felt like 12 hours. Dylan sat in the back, Reaper beside him, one arm around his son's shoulders. Nina drove, knuckles white on the steering wheel. "How many?" Reaper asked quietly. "How many staples?" "I counted at least 30 before I stopped," Nina said. "But there are more. They're everywhere." 30. Reaper's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. Someone had put 30 pieces of metal into his 11-year-old son's head. "They filmed it," Dylan said suddenly, his voice hollow. "Every time. Posted it online. Called it a challenge." "What?" Nina nearly swerved off the road. "They filmed themselves doing this to you?" "Chase said I was too weird for normal school. Said I needed to learn a lesson." Dylan's voice was eerily flat now, like he'd disconnected from his own words. "His friends held me down. In the gym. During PE. Nobody stopped them. Everyone just watched." Reaper couldn't speak, couldn't trust what would come out of his mouth. His whole body vibrated with rage. "Who's Chase?" Nina asked, though her tone said she already knew she wasn't going to like the answer. "Chase Hendricks. His dad's on the school board." Of course it was Hendrix's kid. Rich, powerful, untouchable. "Not anymore," Reaper said, his voice deadly quiet. "Not after tonight." "Marcus, I'm not going to do anything stupid," he said, though every cell in his body screamed for violence. "But I'm not letting this go either. Ever." They pulled up to the ER entrance. Nina jumped out, helping Dylan from the back seat while Reaper threw open the doors. "I need help," Nina called out. "I need help right now." A nurse looked up from her station, saw Dylan, and immediately came around the desk. "What happened?" "Assault," Nina said, her social worker training kicking in. "Multiple penetrating wounds to the scalp. Possible infection. The nurse's eyes widened as she saw Dylan's head. Oh my God, get me a trauma team, now! Everything moved fast after that. Too fast. Dylan was whisked away on a gurney, crying for his dad. Reaper tried to follow, but a security guard stopped him. Sir, you need to wait here while they... That's my son. I understand, but you need to let them work. Nina's hand found his arm again. They'll take care of him. Come on, we have to fill out paperwork. Paperwork. His son was being tortured and he had to fill out forms. The waiting room was hell. Reaper paced, unable to sit, while Nina handled the administrative nightmare. Other patients gave him a wide berth, probably sensing the violence barely contained beneath his skin. An hour crawled by, then two. Finally, a doctor emerged. Dr. Sarah Chen, her badge read. She looked tired and angry. Mr. Sullivan? How is he? We've removed 47 staples from your son's scalp. 47. The number hit him like a freight train. 47 times someone hurt his boy. 47 deliberate acts of cruelty. Some had been there for at least 3 weeks, Dr. Chen continued. Several were deeply embedded and caused infection. We've cleaned and dressed the wounds, started him on antibiotics. He's going to need follow-up care and probably some counseling. Can I see him? Dr. Chen nodded. Room 3. But Mr. Sullivan, I have to tell you, we're legally required to report this to the authorities. Child Protective Services will be contacted. Good, Reaper said. They should be. This happened at school. On their watch. He pushed past her, Nina following close behind. Room 3 was at the end of the hall. Dylan lay in the hospital bed, his head wrapped in white bandages, looking so small against the white sheets. Hey, buddy, Reaper said softly. Dylan's eyes opened. Dad! I'm here. Reaper pulled a chair close to the bed, taking his son's hand. I'm right here. They gave me medicine. Doesn't hurt as much now. Good, that's good. Nina stood by the door, giving them space. Reaper saw her wipe her eyes. Mr. Sullivan? A nurse appeared, holding a plastic bag. We found this in your son's jacket pocket when we were getting him changed. She handed him the bag. Inside was a photograph. Dylan alone in a school courtyard, surrounded by other kids who all had their backs turned to him, deliberately excluding him, making him invisible. Reaper turned it over. On the back in Dylan's careful handwriting, maybe if I'm quiet enough, I'll disappear. That's what they want. Maybe they're right. His vision blurred with tears. This wasn't just physical abuse. They'd gotten inside his son's head, made him think he deserved this, made him think silence was the only option. Nina, he choked out. Nina, look at this. She took the photo, read the words, and her face crumpled. Oh, God. Oh, God, Dylan. What? Dylan asked weakly. What's wrong? Nina sank into a chair, the photo trembling in her hands. When she looked up at Reaper, her eyes held a pain so raw it took his breath away. Her name was Emma, Nina whispered. She was 9 years old. 5 years ago, I was her social worker. Her voice broke. She wrote me notes just like this, begging for help in ways I was too blind to see, and I failed her. Nina, she killed herself. The words came out flat, factual, devastating. After I closed her case, said the home environment was fine, said she was just being dramatic. Nina looked at Dylan, tears streaming down her face. I missed all the signs. And she died. The room went silent except for the beep of Dylan's monitors. That's why you left social work, Reaper said quietly. I couldn't do it anymore, couldn't trust myself. So I ran, spent 5 years slinging coffee and hiding. Nina stood up, moving to Dylan's bedside. But I saw you, sweetheart. I saw you this time, and I'm not letting anyone fail you. Not again. Dylan reached out with his free hand, and Nina took it. You saved me, Dylan whispered. No, baby, you saved yourself by holding on. I just listened. Reaper watched them, these two broken people finding each other in a hospital room, and something settled in his chest. A purpose, a direction. He stood up, fishing his phone from his pocket. "What are you doing?" Nina asked. "Making calls." He headed for the door, starting with the sheriff, then the school, then a lawyer. He paused, looking back at his son. "The right way. We're doing this the right way." "Marcus, I know what you're thinking, that I'm going to go after these kids, handle it like I used to handle problems." He shook his head. "But Dylan needs me to be better than that. Needs me to show him that justice doesn't have to come from a fist." Nina's expression softened. "That takes real strength." "Yeah, well," Reaper managed a grim smile. "Let's see if I actually have it." He stepped into the hallway, pulling up his contacts. The old Reaper would already be on his bike, hunting down the Hendricks kid. The old Reaper would make sure everyone involved learned what happened when you messed with Marcus Sullivan's family. But the old Reaper would also lose his son in the process, would prove every teacher, every social worker, every judge right when they said he wasn't fit to raise a child. His finger hovered over Axel's number. One call, that's all it would take. The Brotherhood would handle it, and nobody would ever touch Dylan again. Instead, he scrolled to Sheriff Mendoza's number and pressed dial. "Sheriff, it's Marcus Sullivan. I need to report an assault, multiple assaults, against my son." Through the window in Dylan's room, he could see Nina holding the boy's hand, both of them looking at him, trusting him, believing in him. He wasn't going to let them down. Not this time. Never again. Sheriff Mendoza arrived at the hospital 40 minutes later, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. She'd brought Deputy Chen with her, and they both wore expressions that told Reaper they'd seen the photos already. "Mr. Sullivan," Mendoza shook his hand, her grip firm. "Your son awake?" "Yeah, but he's scared. Doesn't want to talk." "He's going to have to." Mendoza's voice was gentle but firm. "We need his statement while it's fresh." Reaper led them to Dylan's room. Nina stood when they entered, positioning herself protectively beside the bed. "Dylan, these officers need to ask you some questions," Reaper said. "It's okay, you're safe now." Dylan's eyes went wide with fear. "They're going to tell Chase. Chase's dad knows all the cops. He said so. He said nobody would believe me." "Hey," Mendoza pulled up a chair, sitting so she was eye level with the boy. "Chase Hendricks' daddy doesn't run my department. Nobody does. And I believe you, son. I saw the pictures. I saw what they did." "You did?" "Hospital sent them over. Made me sick to my stomach." Mendoza's jaw clenched. "Now I need you to tell me everything. Names, dates, where it happened. Can you do that for me?" Dylan looked at his father. Reaper nodded encouragement. "Chase Hendricks," Dylan whispered. "Tyler Morrison, Jake Chen." Deputy Chen flinched at the last name. "My nephew Jake?" "I'm sorry," Dylan said quickly. "I'm sorry, I didn't want to." "No," Chen's voice was harsh. "Don't you dare apologize. If my nephew did this, he's going to answer for it." Mendoza was writing everything down. "When did it start?" "October, right after I joined the photography club." Dylan's hands twisted in the hospital blanket. "Chase said only girls do photography, said I was weird, said I needed to learn how to be a real boy." "And the staples?" "First time was in the locker room, after gym class." Dylan's voice dropped. "Tyler held my arms. Jake held my legs. Chase had the stapler from the teacher's desk. He said if I screamed, they'd tell everyone I was lying, that I did it for attention." Reaper's hands clenched into fists. Nina touched his arm, a silent reminder. "How many times did this happen?" Mendoza asked. "I don't know. A lot. Maybe 10 times? 15? Dylan started crying. "They kept filming it, posted it in a private group chat. Other kids watched. Some of them laughed." "Jesus Christ," Chen muttered. "They do it whenever they could get me alone. Sometimes in the bathroom, once in the library. The librarian was right there, but she had headphones on. Dylan was shaking now. Nobody helped. Nobody ever helped. Did you tell any teachers? Mendoza's pen moved across the page. I tried. Once. Mr. Phillips saw Chase shove me into a locker. I told him everything. Dylan's face crumpled. He said boys roughhouse. Said I needed tougher skin. Told me to stop being dramatic. Reaper stood abruptly, needing to move before he put his fist through a wall. We're going to need those videos, Mendoza said, for evidence. Chase deleted them after the last time. Said the game was getting boring anyway. Doesn't matter. Digital forensics can recover deleted files. Mendoza closed her notebook. Dylan, you did good, really good. We're going to make sure these boys face consequences. After the deputies left, a hospital social worker arrived. Young woman, couldn't be more than 25, with a clipboard and tired eyes. Mr. Sullivan, I'm Amy Reeves from Child Protective Services. I need to ask you some questions. Reaper's blood ran cold. You think I did this? No, but we have to rule out home environment factors. It's standard procedure. Standard procedure, Reaper repeated, his voice dangerous. My son gets tortured at school and you're investigating me? Marcus, Nina stepped forward. Let her do her job. The faster we cooperate, the faster she leaves. The questions were invasive and humiliating. Did Dylan have his own room? Yes. Was there alcohol in the home? Some beer. Did Reaper have a criminal record? Assault charges, served 2 years, released 4 years ago. Did he have anger management issues? Look at my son, Reaper said, his voice shaking. Look at what they did to him and ask me again if I have anger issues. Amy Reeves softened slightly. Mr. Sullivan, I can see you love your son. I can see this wasn't you, but I have to complete my evaluation. Nina sat beside Dylan, holding his hand while the social worker asked him questions. Was his father ever violent at home? No. Did he feel safe with his father? Yes. Had anyone in the home ever hurt him? The only person who hurts me is Chase, Dylan said, his voice small but clear. Dad would never hurt me, ever. Finally, after what felt like hours, Amy Reeves packed up her clipboard. I'll file my report. Based on what I've seen, I don't have concerns about the home environment. How generous of you, Reaper muttered. After she left, Nina excused herself to the hallway. Reaper found her 10 minutes later, leaning against the wall, tears streaming down her face. Hey, he touched her shoulder carefully. You okay? I was supposed to save her, Nina said, her voice breaking. Emma, I was her caseworker for 6 months. 6 months of home visits, of talking to her teachers, of filing reports that said everything was fine. Nina, she told me she was sad, that the kids at school were mean. I told her it would get better. I told her to be strong. Nina's laugh was bitter. And she was strong, right up until the day she hung herself in her bedroom closet. Reaper pulled her into his arms, this woman who'd saved his son, who was falling apart from her own guilt. You didn't know, he said. I should have known. That's my job. I was trained to see the signs. Nina sobbed into his chest. I found her journal after, the one she kept hidden. Page after page of her begging for someone to notice, to help, to see that she was drowning. What happened to her bullies? Nothing. The school called it a tragedy, said nobody could have predicted it, swept it under the rug, and moved on. Nina pulled back, wiping her eyes. Her mother sued the school district, lost, couldn't prove they were negligent. That's why you quit social work. I couldn't face another child, couldn't trust myself not to miss the signs again. She looked at him, her eyes raw. But when I touched Dylan's hair tonight, when I felt those staples, it was like God giving me a second chance, a chance to actually save a child this time. You did save him, Reaper said. He wouldn't have told anyone. He'd have just kept suffering until... He couldn't finish the sentence. Didn't want to think about what might have happened if Nina hadn't been paying attention. We can't let the school bury this, Nina said, her voice hardening. We have to fight. already planning on it. At 7 the next morning, Reaper stood outside Principal Morrison's office. Dylan was still in the hospital for observation, Nina staying with him. That freed Reaper to handle business. Morrison's secretary, a pinched-faced woman named Carol, looked up when he entered. "I need to see Morrison, now." "He's in a meeting." "I don't care." Reaper pushed past her desk. "Sir, you can't just—" He opened Morrison's door without knocking. The principal sat behind his desk, coffee in hand, looking annoyed at the interruption. "Mr. Sullivan, you need to make an appointment. You need to tell me how 3 boys tortured my son on school grounds for 3 months and nobody noticed." Morrison set down his coffee. "If you're referring to the incident with Dylan—" "Incident?" Reaper's voice rose. "They put 47 staples in his head." "Please lower your voice, and please sit down so we can discuss this rationally." Reaper sat barely. Every muscle in his body screamed to flip the desk. "I've reviewed the preliminary reports," Morrison said, "and while the behavior is certainly concerning, we have to be careful about rushing to judgment. My son is in the hospital." "I understand that, but boys at this age often engage in rough play that can get out of hand. We need to consider that your son may be exaggerating." "Exaggerating?" Reaper leaned forward. "You think he exaggerated 47 pieces of metal being shoved into his skull?" "I'm not saying he's lying. I'm saying children sometimes misremember details when they're upset. There are videos. The boys filmed it." Morrison shifted uncomfortably. "I haven't seen any videos." "That's because they deleted them, but the sheriff can recover them." "Mr. Sullivan, I understand you're upset, but we have to think about all the students involved. Chase Hendricks is a good kid from a good family. Tyler Morrison is my nephew. These boys made a mistake, yes, but ruining their futures over one incident—" "One incident?" Reaper stood so fast his chair fell over. "You think this was one incident? Please calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down. My son told a teacher. Mr. Phillips saw Chase attacking Dylan and did nothing." Morrison's expression hardened. "Mr. Phillips reported that he saw 2 boys roughhousing. He spoke to both of them. Dylan said everything was fine. Because he was terrified? Or because nothing serious was happening?" Morrison folded his hands on his desk. "Mr. Sullivan, I think you need to consider that your son might be sensitive. Given his interests in photography and art, he's not like other boys. Sometimes children who are different face normal social challenges." "Stop." Reaper's voice went deadly quiet. "Stop talking before I do something we'll both regret." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm telling you that if you try to blame my son for being tortured, we're going to have a problem." Morrison stood. "I think you should leave. When you're ready to have a civil conversation about how to help Dylan adjust better socially." Reaper was halfway across the desk before he stopped himself. Morrison stumbled backward, his face going white. "My son doesn't need to adjust," Reaper said through clenched teeth. "Your students need to stop being criminals." He walked out, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. In the parking lot, he sat in his truck, shaking with rage. His phone rang. "Nina." "How'd it go?" "Morrison's covering for them, calling it roughhousing, says Dylan's exaggerating." Nina's sharp intake of breath said everything. "Of course he is. Morrison's nephew is one of the bullies." "What?" "Tyler Morrison, the principal's nephew." Nina's voice was bitter. "This town is so small, everyone's related to someone important." Reaper slammed his hand against the steering wheel. "So what do we do?" "We pull Dylan out, homeschool him." "You serious?" "I'm certified to teach. I could do it at the diner during slow hours. Keep him safe while we figure out the legal stuff." "You'd do that?" "Marcus, I'd do anything for that boy. Anything." Something warm spread through Reaper's chest. "Okay, yeah, let's do it." He drove back to the hospital, found Nina in Dylan's room. The boy was awake, picking at breakfast he wasn't eating. "Hey, buddy, how you feeling?" "Tired. My head still hurts. The doctor said that's normal, Nina added. The wounds need time to heal. Reaper pulled up a chair. We need to talk about school. Dylan's face went pale. I don't want to go back. Please don't make me go back. You're not going back, not there. Reaper took his son's hand. Nina's going to teach you. Homeschool. You'll study at the diner. Really? Hope flickered across Dylan's face. Really? No more Chase, no more Tyler or Jake. Just you and Nina and books and probably too much pie. Dylan actually smiled. Small, but real. A knock at the door interrupted them. Sheriff Mendoza entered, her expression grim. I need to talk to you both, privately. Nina and Reaper stepped into the hallway. We executed a search warrant on Chase Hendricks' phone, found the videos. And? All deleted, but our tech guys recovered fragments. Mendoza's jaw clenched. What they show is bad, really bad. Clear assault, multiple instances. The other boys are visible. We have enough to charge all three. Good. There's a problem. Chase's father is already lawyered up. Got Martin Weiss from the city. Reaper knew that name. Expensive defense attorney who got rich kids out of serious charges. He's claiming the boys were just playing, that Dylan participated willingly, that this whole thing is being blown out of proportion by an unfit father with a criminal record. That's bullshit. I know it's bullshit, but Weiss is good at creating reasonable doubt. Mendoza looked uncomfortable. There's more. He's filed a complaint against you. Against me? Says you threatened Principal Morrison this morning, that you came unglued, tried to assault him. Morrison's backing up the story. Reaper's vision went red. I didn't touch him. I believe you, but it gives them ammunition. They're going to paint you as violent and unstable. Argue that Dylan's afraid of you, that he made up the bullying story to get attention. Nobody's going to believe that. You'd be surprised what a good lawyer can make people believe. Mendoza touched his arm. You need to be squeaky clean from here on out. No confrontations, no threats, nothing they can use against you. After she left, Reaper stood in the hallway, feeling the walls close in. They were going to get away with it. These rich kids were going to torture his son and walk away clean. Marcus, Nina appeared beside him. Don't. Don't what? Don't do what you're thinking. I can see it in your eyes. They're going to walk, Nina. Morrison's protecting them. Hendricks has the best lawyer money can buy. They'll claim Dylan's lying and I'm crazy, and that'll be the end of it. Maybe, or maybe we fight smarter. Nina pulled out her phone. I still have contacts from my social work days. People who handle cases the system fails. Let me make some calls. What kind of people? The kind who know how to work the media, how to apply pressure, how to make sure this doesn't just disappear. She met his eyes. We can't fight them with fists, but we can fight them with truth. Reaper wanted to argue, wanted to get on his bike, ride to the Hendricks mansion, and teach that man what happened when you raised a monster. But Dylan's words echoed in his head. Be the person Mom said you'd never be. Be better. Okay, he said. We do it your way, for now. That night, Dylan was discharged with pain medication and strict instructions to follow up in a week. Reaper carried him to the truck, Nina following with the paperwork and prescriptions. Can we go to the diner? Dylan asked. I don't want to go home yet. Sure, buddy, whatever you want. Lou's roadside diner was quiet on a Wednesday night. Lou himself came out from the kitchen when they arrived, his weathered face softening when he saw Dylan. Hey, kid, heard you had a rough time. Dylan nodded, not meeting his eyes. Well, you're safe here. Always. Lou cleared his throat gruffly. Nina tells me you're going to be studying here now. I set up a corner for you. Desk, good light, everything you need. Really? Really, consider it your office. Dylan smiled and something in Reaper's chest eased slightly. They settled into their usual booth. Nina brought hot chocolate with extra whipped cream, grilled cheese cut diagonal just how Dylan liked. and coffee for Reaper that was probably more whiskey than coffee, though she didn't say anything. "I want to tell you something," Nina said, sitting beside Dylan. "When I was a social worker, I had a case, a little girl named Emma." Reaper started to interrupt, but Nina shook her head. Dylan needed to hear this. "Emma was being bullied too, really badly. She told me about it, but I didn't listen closely enough. I thought she was just having normal kid problems." Nina's voice shook. "She died, Dylan. She took her own life because nobody protected her." Dylan's eyes went wide. "I'm sorry." "No, baby, I'm telling you this because I need you to understand something. What happened to Emma, what happened to you, it's not rare. It happens all the time. And adults fail children all the time by not seeing, not believing, not acting. So what do? We make sure nobody fails you again. We fight back, not with violence, but with truth." Nina took his hand. "And we make sure other kids don't have to go through what you went through." "How?" "By speaking up, by sharing your story, by making sure people can't ignore what happened." Dylan looked at his father. "Will people believe me?" "Some will," Reaper said honestly. "Some won't. But we're going to tell the truth anyway." "What if Chase's dad makes people think I'm lying?" "Then we keep telling the truth until someone listens." Reaper leaned forward. "I'm not going to lie to you, buddy. This is going to be hard. People are going to say mean things. They're going to question you, doubt you, maybe even blame you. But we're going to get through it together." Dylan was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something Reaper hadn't seen in weeks. His camera. "I want to take pictures again," Dylan said softly. "I want to show people what kindness looks like, so they remember it exists." Nina's eyes filled with tears. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. Chase said my art was stupid, that I was stupid for caring about things like that." Dylan looked at his camera, turning it over in his hands. "But maybe that's exactly why I should do it, because people like Chase forget that being kind isn't weak." Reaper reached across the table, ruffling his son's hair gently, careful of the bandages. "You're smarter than I'll ever be, you know that?" "You're plenty smart, Dad." "Nah, I saw problems with my fists. You solved them with your heart." Reaper's throat tightened. "That takes real courage." They stayed at the diner until closing, Dylan sketching on napkins while Nina and Reaper talked quietly about next steps. Lawyers, meetings, media contacts, building a case not just in court, but in the court of public opinion. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be quick. But looking at his son, really seeing him for the first time in months, Reaper knew they'd do whatever it took. Because Dylan deserved better than silence. Better than fear. Better than a world where cruelty won. And maybe, just maybe, they could build that better world together. The first morning of homeschool started at Lou's Diner at 9 o'clock sharp. Nina had cleared a corner table, stacked with textbooks she'd borrowed from the library and art supplies she'd bought with her own money. Dylan sat with his camera beside him, hands wrapped around hot chocolate, looking more relaxed than Reaper had seen him in months. "Okay, so we're starting with history," Nina said, opening a textbook. "But we're doing it different. I want you to photograph things around town that tell Millbrook's story. The old buildings, the people who've been here forever. Make history come alive." Dylan's eyes lit up. "Really? That counts as homework?" "Everything counts as homework when you're learning to see the world clearly," Nina smiled. "Now eat your breakfast. Can't learn on an empty stomach." Reaper watched from the counter, sipping coffee Lou kept refilling. 2 weeks had passed since the hospital. 2 weeks of healing wounds and growing hair, and slowly, carefully, rebuilding what had been broken. The bell over the door chimed. Mrs. Chen walked in, her face tight with anger. She marched straight to Reaper. "My nephew confessed," she said without preamble. "Everything, the staples, the filming, all of it. He's been having nightmares, can't sleep, finally broke down and told his mother. And his mother is furious with him, as she should be, but she's also scared." Mrs. Chen's voice dropped. Martin Weiss told them if Jake testifies against Chase and Tyler, he'll make sure Jake gets charged as an adult. Says he'll paint him as the ringleader. Reaper's jaw clenched. Jake's 12 years old. Weiss doesn't care. He's protecting the Hendricks family, and he'll destroy anyone who gets in the way. Mrs. Chen pulled out a business card. But I know someone who might help. Prosecutor out of the state capitol. She specializes in cases like this. Cases where local politics get in the way of justice. Reaper took the card. Elena Rodriguez, Assistant District Attorney. Thank you. Mrs. Chen looked over at Dylan, who was showing Nina something on his camera. That boy deserves better than what this town gave him. We all do. After she left, Reaper called the number. Rodriguez answered on the second ring, her voice sharp and professional. Ms. Rodriguez, my name is Marcus Sullivan. My son was assaulted repeatedly at Millbrook Middle School, and the local system is protecting his attackers. Tell me everything. Reaper did. 47 staples, 3 months of torture, videos, a principal who called it roughhousing, a defense attorney threatening witnesses. Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. I'll need to see the evidence. Medical records, police reports, everything. Can you get that to me by tomorrow? Yes. Good. Because if what you're telling me is true, we're not just looking at assault, we're looking at conspiracy to obstruct justice. Her voice hardened. And I don't care whose nephew is involved. Hope flared in Reaper's chest for the first time in weeks. That afternoon, Dylan worked on his photography project while Nina taught him about composition and light. Reaper sat nearby pretending to work on invoices, but really just watching his son smile. Dad? Dylan looked up from his camera. Will you come with me tomorrow to take pictures at the church? Reaper shifted uncomfortably. Why the church? Because Nina says Father Rodriguez helped her after Emma died. I want to photograph people who help other people. Nina caught Reaper's eye, gave him a gentle nod. Yeah, buddy, I'll come. The next morning they drove to St. Anthony's, a small brick church on the edge of town. Father Rodriguez met them at the door, a man in his 60s with kind eyes and calloused hands. Marcus, good to see you again. Father. And you must be Dylan. Father Rodriguez knelt down to the boy's level. Nina told me about your project. I think it's wonderful. Can I take your picture? Of course, though I warn you, I'm not very photogenic. Dylan raised his camera, studied Father Rodriguez through the viewfinder, then clicked. You have good eyes, sad but good. Father Rodriguez laughed. Out of the mouths of babes. Come on, I'll show you around. While Dylan photographed the church, Father Rodriguez pulled Reaper aside. Nina tells me you're struggling. I'm fine. Marcus, I've been doing this a long time. I know what fine looks like, and you're not it. Father Rodriguez sat on a pew, gestured for Reaper to join him. Talk to me. Reaper sat, the wood hard beneath him. I want to hurt them. The kids who did this, their parents, the principal. I want to make them pay. That's understandable. Is it? Because Nina keeps telling me violence isn't the answer, that I need to be better. But being better isn't working. They're still getting away with it. Maybe, or maybe you're defining working too narrowly. Father Rodriguez leaned back. Revenge feels good in the moment, but it doesn't heal anything. Trust me, I know. Before I became a priest, I was in the army. Did things I'm not proud of. Hurt people I thought deserved it. Did they? Some, maybe, but it didn't fix what was broken inside me, just made the break deeper. Father Rodriguez looked at him. Your son doesn't need you to be a warrior. He needs you to be his father. Present, steady, safe. I'm trying. I know you are. And that's more than a lot of men would do. Father Rodriguez stood. Keep trying. That's all any of us can do. Dylan bounded over, camera in hand. Dad, come see. There's light coming through the window that looks like gold. Reaper followed his son, feeling something shift inside him. Maybe Father Rodriguez was right. Maybe the fight wasn't about fists. Maybe it was about showing up every day and choosing differently. A week later, Nina's media contact called back. Sarah Chen, investigative journalist for the state newspaper. "I want to do a story," she said over speakerphone. Nina and Reaper sat in the diner's back office. Dylan at school, his new school, the makeshift classroom Nina had created. Human interest piece. Boy survives bullying through art and family support. It'll put pressure on the school district. "Will it help the case?" Reaper asked. "It'll make it harder for them to sweep under the rug. Public attention means accountability." "Then do it." Sarah Chen arrived 2 days later with a photographer. She interviewed Dylan gently, never pushing, letting him tell his story in his own words. She photographed his healing scalp, the bandages still visible beneath new growth. She captured him working with Nina, laughing over math problems, carefully composing shots with his camera. "Can I see your project?" Sarah asked. Dylan showed her. Photographs of Lou making breakfast for a homeless man, Mrs. Chen helping an elderly woman cross the street, Father Rodriguez sitting with a crying teenager, Reaper teaching a neighborhood kid how to change oil, Nina reading to children at the library. "These are beautiful," Sarah said, her voice thick. "What are you going to call the series?" Dylan thought for a moment. "Hidden Kindness, because people forget to look for it." The article ran the following Sunday. Front page above the fold. "Hidden Kindness. Boy uses art to heal after school torture." The phones started ringing immediately. Lou's diner was packed by noon. Reporters from 3 counties, concerned parents, angry citizens demanding to know how the school let this happen. Principal Morrison's office was besieged. The school board called an emergency meeting. "This is working," Nina said, watching the chaos from behind the counter. "People are paying attention." But that night, Reaper's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You're going to regret this. Your kid's a liar and everyone's going to know it." Then another. "Watch your back, Sullivan." Then a photo, his house, taken from across the street, recent. Reaper's blood ran cold. He showed Nina. "They're trying to scare you," she said, but he could hear the fear in her voice. "It's working." "What do you want to do?" "I want to—" Reaper stopped himself, took a breath. "I want to call the sheriff, like a normal person who doesn't solve problems with violence." Sheriff Mendoza took the threats seriously, increased patrols around Reaper's house and the diner. But she warned him, threatening texts are hard to prosecute. Could be anyone. Could be the boys, their parents, random internet trolls. "We'll investigate, but don't expect quick results." Dylan's photography project went viral after a local mom shared it on social media. Within 48 hours, it had been shared thousands of times. Comments poured in from across the country. People sharing their own bullying stories. Parents thanking Dylan for giving them courage to speak up about their own children's suffering. "Dad, look at this," Dylan said, scrolling through messages on Nina's laptop. "Someone in California said my pictures made her talk to her son's school. Someone in Texas said they're starting an anti-bullying program because of me." Reaper read over his shoulder, his throat tight. His boy, his quiet, gentle boy, was changing hearts across the country. But success bred backlash. The Millbrook Parents Coalition, a group led by wealthy families including the Hendricks, issued a statement calling Dylan's story exaggerated and the media attention harmful to the accused boy's mental health. "They're children too," Mrs. Hendricks said in a televised interview, "being subjected to trial by media before they've had their day in court. My son made a mistake, yes, but he doesn't deserve to be vilified." Reaper threw the remote across the room. "Mistake? She called torturing my kid a mistake?" "Don't engage," Nina warned. "That's what they want, for you to lose control on camera." "I'm not going to lose control." "Good, because we have a school board meeting tomorrow night, and you need to be calm and collected." The school board meeting was standing room only. Reaper sat in the front row, Nina on one side, Dylan on the other. His son's hand was cold in his. Principal Morrison presented first, his tone defensive. We take all allegations seriously, but we must balance discipline with due process. These boys have rights too. What about my son's rights? Reaper called out. Mr. Sullivan, please wait for public comment. No, I want to know what rights my son had when your nephew was stapling his head. The room erupted. Board President Hendricks banged his gavel. Order! Mr. Sullivan, one more outburst and you'll be removed. Nina squeezed Reaper's hand. He sat back, shaking with rage. Parent after parent spoke. Some supported Dylan, sharing their own children's bullying experiences. Others defended the accused boys, calling for privacy and patience. Then Dylan stood up. I want to say something. The room went quiet. All eyes on this small boy with his healing scalp in steady voice. I was scared to tell anyone because I thought nobody would believe me. I thought I deserved it because I'm different. I like art and photography instead of sports. I cry sometimes. I'm not tough like other boys. Dylan's voice shook, but didn't break. But I learned something. Being kind isn't weak. Standing up for yourself isn't mean. And asking for help doesn't make you a baby. He looked directly at Board President Hendricks. Your son hurt me because he could, because nobody stopped him, because adults looked the other way and said, boys will be boys. Dylan's hands clenched into fists. But I'm not staying quiet anymore, and I hope other kids won't either. The room exploded in applause. Hendricks's face went purple with rage. After the meeting, in the parking lot, Reaper saw Chase Hendricks for the first time since the hospital. The boy stood beside his father's Mercedes, smirking. Nice speech, Chase called out. Too bad nobody believes you. Reaper started forward, but Nina grabbed his arm. He's baiting you. Don't. Yeah, listen to your girlfriend, Chase taunted. Everyone knows you're crazy anyway. Ex-con biker dad with anger issues. No wonder your kid's so messed up. Dylan pulled on Reaper's other arm. Dad, please, let's just go home. Reaper looked at his son, saw the fear there. Fear of Chase, yes, but also fear of what Reaper might do. He turned away from Chase, put his arm around Dylan, and walked to his truck. Behind them, Chase laughed. That's right. Run away. Like father, like son. Both of you are cowards. In the truck, Dylan was crying. I'm sorry I'm not brave enough. Hey, Reaper pulled over, turned to face his son. What you did in there, speaking in front of all those people, that's the bravest thing I've ever seen. You're braver than I'll ever be. But I was scared. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. Reaper wiped Dylan's tears. I'm so proud of you, buddy. So damn proud. 2 days later, Dylan received a Facebook message from Kyle, a boy from his old class. Hey, some of us are playing basketball at the park. Want to come? We miss you. Dylan showed Reaper and Nina. It's probably a trap, Reaper said immediately. Or maybe it's real, Dylan countered. Kyle was always nice to me. He never participated in the bullying. I don't like it. Dad, I can't hide forever. If I want other kids to be brave, I have to be brave too. Nina bit her lip. What if I come with you? Stay at the park, keep an eye on things. That's embarrassing. Tough. You want to go, I'm coming. Dylan agreed, and that afternoon they drove to Riverside Park. Kids were indeed playing basketball. Kyle waved when he saw Dylan. See, Dylan said, it's fine. Nina parked nearby, watching as Dylan jogged over to the court. The boys greeted him, passed him the ball, seemed genuinely happy to see him. Nina relaxed slightly. Half an hour passed. Dylan was laughing, playing, being a normal kid. Nina pulled out her phone to text Reaper that everything was okay. That's when she saw Chase Hendricks emerge from behind the bathrooms. Dylan, she screamed. Dylan, run! But it was too late. Chase tackled Dylan from behind, slamming him into the concrete. Tyler and Jake appeared from nowhere, pinning the boy's arms. Nina was running, phone out, dialing 911, screaming for help. Other kids scattered, terrified. Kyle stood frozen, tears streaming down his face. Chase pulled out scissors. "You think you're so special?" he snarled, grabbing Dylan's hair. "Let's see how special you are bald." He started cutting, brutal and fast, while Tyler and Jake held Dylan down. Dylan's screams echoed across the park. Nina reached them, throwing herself at Chase, knocking him sideways. The scissors clattered away. "Get off him!" she yelled, pulling at Tyler. "Get off!" Tyler shoved her hard. Nina fell, hitting her head on the basketball pole. Stars exploded in her vision. Chase kicked Dylan in the ribs. Once, twice. "Freak! Tattletale! This is what you get." Then sirens. Police cars screaming into the parking lot. The boys ran, but officers caught them before they reached the street. Nina crawled to Dylan, who lay curled on the ground, hair hacked short, bleeding from his mouth, making horrible wheezing sounds. "Hold on, baby, hold on. Help is coming." The ambulance arrived. Paramedics loaded Dylan onto a stretcher. Broken collarbone, possible internal bleeding, severe concussion. Reaper met them at the emergency room. When he saw his son, unconscious, battered, hair brutally shorn, something inside him snapped. "Where are they?" His voice was deadly calm. "Where are those boys?" "Marcus," Nina started. "Where are they?" "Jail. Juvenile detention. Marcus, please." He walked out without another word, got on his motorcycle, rode through town with murder in his heart. He ended up at the Hendricks mansion at midnight. Lights on in the study. He could see Hendricks Sr. through the window, drunk, alone, staring at a wall of family photos. Reaper walked up to the door. Didn't knock, just opened it. Hendricks looked up, saw him, and went pale. "Get out of my house. Your son put mine in the hospital. Again. My son is a good boy who made a mistake. Shut up." Reaper's voice was soft, dangerous. "Just shut up and listen." Hendricks reached for his phone. Reaper crossed the room in 3 strides, took the phone from his hand, set it down. "I came here to hurt you," Reaper said, "to make you feel a fraction of what my boy feels, to break your bones and your face and your spirit until you begged for mercy." Hendricks was shaking. "Please." But then I realized something. "You're already broken, aren't you?" Reaper looked at the photos on the wall. Hendricks' family through the years. The wife who'd left 2 years ago. The son growing meaner in each picture. "You're making the same mistakes my old man made, teaching your boy that real men use violence. That power means hurting people weaker than you." "I don't." "Yeah, you do. I see it in your eyes. Someone hurt you once. Maybe your father, maybe someone else. And instead of breaking that cycle, you passed it on to Chase. Just like my father passed it to me." Hendricks started crying. Actually crying, this rich, powerful man sobbing at his desk. "I don't know how to stop," he choked out. "I don't know how to be different." "Neither did I. But my son is in a hospital bed right now, and he'll wake up broken. And when he does, he's going to look at me and ask if I hurt you. If I became the monster everyone expects me to be." Reaper's voice cracked. "And I need to be able to tell him no, that I chose different, that I chose better." "I'm sorry," Hendricks whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix anything, but here's what will. You're going to get Chase real help, therapy, treatment, whatever it takes. And you're going to get yourself help too. Break this cycle before it destroys you both completely." Reaper walked to the door, paused. "And if your son ever touches mine again, I won't come here to talk. We clear?" Hendricks nodded, still crying. Reaper rode back to the hospital, his hands shaking on the handlebars. Inside, Dylan was still unconscious. Nina sat beside his bed, her own head bandaged. "I didn't hurt him," Reaper said. "Hendricks, I didn't touch him." Nina stood, pulled him into her arms. "I know. I wanted to. I know that too." They held each other while machines beeped and fluorescent lights hummed, and their boy slept on, broken but breathing. 3 hours later, Dylan's eyes opened, confused, hurting, searching the room until he found his father. "Dad? I'm here, buddy. Did you hurt them?" Reaper knelt beside the bed, took his son's hand. "No, I didn't hurt anyone." Relief flooded Dylan's face. "Good. Be better, Dad. Be the person Mom said you'd never be." "I'm trying, son. God help me, I'm trying." Dylan smiled weakly, then closed his eyes again. But his hand stayed tight in Reaper's, trust and love in that small grip. And Reaper knew, looking at that hand, that he'd made the right choice. That being better was harder than being violent, but it was the only choice that mattered. The hospital kept Dylan for 3 days. 3 days of tests and monitoring, and doctors checking for brain bleeds and internal damage. Reaper slept in the chair beside his son's bed, refusing to leave even when nurses insisted he needed rest. Nina brought them breakfast on the second morning. Coffee for Reaper, oatmeal for Dylan, her own face still bruised from where Tyler had shoved her into the basketball pole. "You should be home resting," Reaper said. "So should you." Nina sat on the edge of Dylan's bed. "How you feeling, sweetheart?" Dylan touched his hacked hair, wincing. "Ugly." "You're beautiful," Nina said firmly, "and hair grows back." "Not fast enough." Dylan's voice was small. "Everyone's going to see." "Let them see," Reaper said. "Let them see what those boys did. Let them remember every time they look at you." "But I don't want to be the victim everyone stares at." "Then don't be." Nina pulled out her phone, showed Dylan something. "Look at this." It was a news article. "Second attack sparks county-wide investigation into school bullying." Dylan read it, his eyes widening. "They're investigating?" "State superintendent ordered it. After the park attack, they can't ignore it anymore." Nina scrolled down. "And look at the comments. Thousands of people supporting you. Parents demanding change. Teachers admitting they missed signs." "Really? Really? You started something, Dylan. Something bigger than you know." A knock on the door interrupted them. Sheriff Mendoza entered, followed by Assistant District Attorney Rodriguez. "Dylan, Mr. Sullivan." Rodriguez shook Reaper's hand. "I've reviewed everything. Medical records, videos, witness statements. We're charging all 3 boys with felony assault." "Felony?" Reaper's eyebrows rose. This wasn't simple battery. This was premeditated, repeated assault causing serious bodily harm. Add in the social media component, the conspiracy to intimidate witnesses, and we've got a strong case. Rodriguez's expression was fierce. "Martin Weiss can lawyer up all he wants. I've never lost a case this clear-cut." "What about the school?" Nina asked. "Morrison, the teachers who looked away." "Separate investigation. The State Board of Education is looking into failure to report, negligence, possible Title IX violations." Rodriguez pulled out a folder. "But I need Dylan to testify. Can you do that?" Dylan looked at his father, fear in his eyes. "It's okay to be scared," Reaper said, "but these people can't hurt you in a courtroom. I'll be right there." "Me too," Nina added. Dylan took a shaky breath. "Okay, I'll do it." "Good boy," Rodriguez smiled. "One more thing. Jake Chen's mother contacted me. He wants to testify against Chase and Tyler. Tell the truth about everything." "Jake?" Dylan's voice went high. "But he was one of them." "His mother says he's been having nightmares, panic attacks, can't sleep, can't eat. He finally told her everything, said he can't live with the guilt." Rodriguez leaned forward. "Would you be willing to hear his apology? It might help the case to show his remorse is genuine." "I don't know if I want to see him." "You don't have to decide now. Think about it." After they left, Dylan was quiet for a long time. "What are you thinking?" Reaper asked. "Emma, Nina's girl. She didn't get justice, did she?" "No. And now I'm getting it because people are watching, because the news made them care." Dylan's voice cracked. That's not fair. Life's not fair, buddy. But it should be. Every kid should matter, not just the ones with viral photos. Nina's eyes filled with tears. You're right. You're absolutely right. So what do we do? Dylan looked between them. How do we make sure other kids like Emma don't fall through the cracks? Reaper looked at Nina, saw the same thought forming. We make them impossible to ignore, Nina said slowly. We create something that forces people to pay attention. The idea started small. A support group for bullied kids, meeting at the diner once a week. Nina would facilitate, using her social work background. Dylan would teach photography, help kids document their stories. But when word spread, the response was overwhelming. Within a week, 15 kids signed up, then 30, then 50. We can't fit 50 kids in the diner, Lou said, but he was smiling. But my buddy owns that old community center on 5th. Been empty for years. We could use that. The community center needed work. The roof leaked, the floors were warped, the walls needed paint. Reaper organized a work party, calling in favors from his old Brotherhood brothers who'd gone straight. Axel showed up first, truck loaded with supplies. Heard you needed help. Thought you were done with me after I went soft. You didn't go soft, you grew up. Axel clapped him on the shoulder. About damn time. They worked for 2 weeks straight, repairing, painting, building. Other fathers joined them. Men who'd heard about Dylan, who had their own kids struggling, who were tired of feeling helpless. Mrs. Chen came with Jake. The boy had lost weight, dark circles under his eyes. He wouldn't look at anyone. He wants to help, Mrs. Chen said. Wants to do something good to balance out what he did wrong. Reaper wanted to say no, wanted to tell this kid who'd hurt his son to get lost. But he remembered Hendrix, crying in his study, broken by his own failures. Fine, grab a paintbrush. East wall needs 2 coats. Jake worked in silence all day, tears streaming down his face as he painted. At sunset, he approached Reaper. Mr. Sullivan, can I talk to Dylan? He doesn't want to see you. I know, but I need him to know I'm sorry, really sorry. Jake's voice broke. I wake up every night seeing what we did. I can't make it stop. Good. Maybe you'll think twice before you hurt someone again. I will. I swear I will. Jake pulled an envelope from his pocket. I wrote him a letter. Everything I did, why I did it, how wrong I was. Would you give it to him? Reaper took the letter, surprised by its weight. Multiple pages, Jake's handwriting covering every inch. I'll give it to him, but I can't promise he'll read it. That's okay, I just need him to know. That night, Reaper gave Dylan the letter. I don't want it, Dylan said immediately. You don't have to read it, but Jake spent a long time writing it. Seems important to him. Dylan stared at the envelope like it might bite. Finally, carefully, he opened it. The first page made him cry. The second made him angry. By the third, he was just quiet. What's it say? Reaper asked. He says his dad hits him, has for years. Said he learned to hurt people before they could hurt him. Dylan wiped his eyes. He says hurting me made him feel powerful for the first time in his life, but now he just feels sick. That's not an excuse. I know, but it's an explanation. Dylan looked up. Nina said hurt people. The community center opened the following Monday. 53 kids showed up, ranging from 7 to 17. Some had visible bruises. Others looked fine, but held themselves like broken things. Nina stood at the front of the room, Reaper and Dylan beside her. Welcome to Hidden Kindness, Nina said. This is a safe space. No judgment, no shame, just truth and support and learning to survive. And art, Dylan added quietly. Art helps. They broke into groups. Younger kids worked on drawing their feelings. Older ones learned photography. Everyone shared stories, tears, anger, hope. A 13-year-old girl named Maya spoke about being excluded by her entire friend group. They made a new chat without me, posted screenshots of me crying in the bathroom, Called me pathetic. You're not pathetic, Dylan said. You're here. That takes guts. Does it get better? Maya asked. Everyone says it gets better, but when? Dylan touched his scarred scalp. I don't know if it gets better, but you get stronger. And that's almost the same thing. By the end of the first session, 3 kids had called their parents asking to switch schools. 2 had admitted to thoughts of self-harm and were connected with crisis counselors. 1 had identified his bully and agreed to file a report. This is working, Nina said that night, cleaning up. We're actually making a difference. Emma would be proud, Reaper said softly. Nina's eyes filled. Yeah, she would. The preliminary hearing for Chase, Tyler, and Jake happened 3 weeks later. The courthouse was packed, media everywhere, parents on both sides, angry and scared. Dylan sat between Reaper and Nina, wearing a button-up shirt that made him look younger than 11. His hair had grown back enough to cover most of the scars. Chase walked in first, expensive suit, his father's hand on his shoulder. He looked bored, like this was an inconvenience. Tyler came next, his mother crying beside him. Then Jake. Alone except for his aunt, he saw Dylan and immediately looked away, shame on his face. The judge, a stern woman named Martinez, reviewed the charges. 3 counts of felony assault, conspiracy to commit assault, intimidation of a witness. These are serious charges, gentlemen. Martin Weiss stood. Your Honor, these are children, first-time offenders from good families. We ask that charges be reduced to misdemeanor battery and the boys be released to their parents' custody for counseling. Rodriguez shot to her feet. These children systematically tortured another child for 3 months. 47 staples embedded in his scalp. Multiple videos showing premeditation. A second attack that put the victim in the hospital with a broken collarbone and concussion. This wasn't horseplay, Your Honor. This was sadism. Judge Martinez looked at Dylan. Young man, stand up, please. Dylan stood, trembling. Remove your hat. Dylan took off his baseball cap. The scars were visible, pink lines across his scalp, where hair still struggled to grow. The courtroom went silent. How old are you, son? 11, ma'am. And how long did this abuse continue? 3 months, maybe more. I stopped counting. Judge Martinez's jaw clenched. Sit down. She looked at Weiss. Motion to reduce charges denied. Trial date set for 6 weeks from today. Defendants remanded to juvenile detention pending trial. Chase's father leaped up. Your Honor, my son has never been in trouble before. Perhaps if he'd been properly disciplined at home, we wouldn't be here. Martinez banged her gavel. Bailiff, take them into custody. Chase's expression finally changed as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Fear replaced arrogance. Tyler was openly crying. Jake went quietly, his head down. As they were led away, Jake turned back to Dylan, mouthed 2 words. I'm sorry. Dylan nodded, just barely. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them. Dylan, how do you feel about the judge's decision? Are you satisfied with the charges? What do you want to say to other bullying victims? Dylan looked at his father, seeking permission. Reaper nodded. I want to say it's okay to be scared, Dylan said, his voice small but steady. I was scared for a long time, too scared to tell anyone. But staying silent just made it worse. He took a breath. If you're being hurt, tell someone. Keep telling until someone listens. And if you see someone being hurt, don't just watch. Be brave enough to help. What about the boys who hurt you? Do you forgive them? Dylan was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Maybe someday. But forgiveness isn't forgetting, and they still have to face consequences. That night, Dylan's statement aired on every local news channel. By morning, it had gone national. The phone calls started again, but this time they were different. Schools asking for Dylan to speak to students. Anti-bullying organizations requesting interviews. A publisher interested in turning Dylan's photography into a book. This is too much, Reaper said, overwhelmed. He's just a kid. A kid who's giving other kids hope, Nina countered. We can manage it. Set boundaries. Only do what Dylan's comfortable with. I want to do it, Dylan said. I want to help. So they did, carefully, slowly. Dylan spoke at 3 schools, sharing his story and his photographs. He did 2 interviews, Nina and Reaper present for both. He started a blog documenting his healing journey, and every week more kids came to Hidden Kindness. 70, then 90, then over 100. We need more space, Lou said, and more volunteers. The answer came from an unexpected source. Principal Morrison's replacement, Dr. Sarah Okafor, contacted them. I want to partner with Hidden Kindness, she said. Bring your program into the schools. Train our teachers to spot warning signs. Give kids a place to go when they're struggling. The school district wants to work with us? Nina was skeptical. The school district screwed up, badly, and I'm not going to let it happen again. Dr. Okafor was firm. Morrison is gone. 3 teachers were fired for failure to report. We're implementing new protocols, mandatory training, zero-tolerance policies that actually mean something. What's the catch? No catch. I want to do right by these kids, all of them. Dr. Okafor looked at Dylan, including mine. My daughter was bullied out of her last school. I transferred here hoping for a fresh start. Then I saw what happened to you and realized nowhere is safe until we make it safe. They shook on it. Within a month, Hidden Kindness was in 3 schools. Within 2 months, 6. By the end of the semester, every school in the county had a chapter. But the biggest change happened quietly, in a juvenile detention center 30 miles away. Jake Chen requested to see Dylan. Absolutely not, Reaper said. I want to go, Dylan said. Why? Why would you want to see him? Because he wrote me another letter, said he's been in therapy, working on himself, wants to make amends. Dylan looked at his father. And because hate is exhausting, Dad, I'm tired of being angry. Nina went with them. The detention center was cold and institutional, all concrete and fluorescent lights. Jake looked smaller in his orange jumpsuit, thinner, older somehow. Thanks for coming, he said, sitting across from them in the visitation room. I know you didn't have to. Dylan didn't say anything. I've been working with a therapist, Dr. Patterson. She's helping me understand why I hurt people. Jake's hands shook. My dad, he's in jail now, for what he did to me, what he's been doing for years. I'm sorry, Dylan said quietly. Don't be. He deserves it, and I deserved consequences too. Jake looked at his hands. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I'm getting help, real help, so I don't become him. Are you going to trial? No, I'm taking a plea deal, testifying against Chase and Tyler, admitting everything I did. Jake's voice broke. My lawyer says I'll probably do 2 years here, then probation, mandatory counseling. Good. Yeah, good. Jake wiped his eyes. When I get out, I want to help. At Hidden Kindness or wherever you need me. I want to spend the rest of my life making up for what I did. Dylan was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his camera. Can I take your picture? Jake looked confused. Why? Because you're part of the story too. The part about how people can change. How hurt doesn't have to become more hurt. Dylan raised the camera. You're not past your mistakes yet, but maybe you will be someday. The photo Dylan took that day would later become the centerpiece of his gallery show. Jake in his orange jumpsuit, tears on his face, hope and shame mixed in his eyes. The caption read, Redemption is possible, but it starts with truth. The trial lasted 3 days. Dylan testified, calm and clear. Tyler broke down on the stand, admitting everything. Chase stayed defiant until Rodriguez played the videos, until the jury saw what he'd done, until even his own lawyer looked disgusted. Guilty. On all counts. Chase got 3 years in juvenile detention, mandatory therapy, 5 years probation after release. Tyler got 2 years, therapy, probation. Jake's plea deal gave him 2 years, early release possible with good behavior. As the verdicts were read, Dylan felt something loosen in his chest. Not quite relief, not quite satisfaction, but something close to peace. Outside the courthouse, Nina hugged him tight. "It's over," she whispered. "No," Dylan said. "It's just starting." Because hidden kindness was growing, because kids were speaking up, because schools were changing, because one boy's suffering had sparked a revolution, and that revolution was just beginning. 6 months after the trial, Dylan stood in front of 200 middle school students, his camera hanging around his neck, his hair grown back enough to cover most scars. The auditorium was silent, waiting. "I used to think being quiet would make me invisible," he said, his voice steady now, stronger. "I thought if I didn't make waves, if I just disappeared into the background, they'd leave me alone." A girl in the third row was crying. Dylan recognized that look, the same hollow fear he'd carried for months. But silence doesn't protect you, it protects them. He pulled up a photo on the screen behind him, his own scalp covered in staples, the image stark and brutal. "This happened because I stayed quiet, because I was too scared to tell anyone." The auditorium erupted in whispers. Teachers shifted uncomfortably, but Dylan didn't stop. "Chase Hendricks put 47 staples in my head over 3 months. His friends held me down and filmed it. And you know what the worst part was?" Dylan's voice cracked. "Other kids watched. Some laughed, some looked away, but nobody helped." "That's not true." A boy stood up in the back. Marcus Chen, Jake's younger brother. "My brother tried to stop it." "Your brother participated," Dylan shot back. "He held my arms while Chase stapled my head." "But he's sorry. He's getting help. He's not a monster." The teacher started to intervene, but Dylan held up his hand. "You're right," he said quietly. "Jake's not a monster. He was a hurt kid who hurt other kids, and now he's trying to change." Dylan pulled up another photo. Jake in his detention center jumpsuit, tears on his face. "This is what redemption looks like. It's ugly and hard, and it doesn't erase what happened, but it's real." Marcus sat down, crying. After the assembly, the girl from the third row approached Dylan. "My name's Sophie," she said. "They've been doing it to me for a year, taking my lunch money, pushing me in the hallway, posting fake profiles pretending to be me." "Have you told anyone?" "My mom. She called the school. They said I was being dramatic." Sophie's hands shook. "But after hearing you, I'm going to tell again. And keep telling until someone listens." Dylan gave her his phone number. "You call me if you need help, anytime." By the end of the day, 12 more kids had reached out. Stories of exclusion, physical attacks, cyberbullying, sexual harassment. The flood was overwhelming. "We need more counselors," Nina said that night at Hidden Kindness headquarters, the community center that now ran programs 5 days a week. "We're getting 50 new kids a month. I can't keep up." "Then we hire more people," Reaper said. He'd been managing the organization's finances, using his garage's profits to keep things running. "We got that grant money last month. 30,000. We use it for staff." "That's your retirement fund." "I don't need retirement if my kid's generation is destroying itself." Reaper looked at the waiting list on Nina's computer. 83 names. These kids need help now. Nina hired 3 more counselors and 2 art therapists. Hidden Kindness expanded to include group therapy, crisis intervention, family counseling. They partnered with local mental health clinics, creating a pipeline from identification to treatment. But success brought new problems. 2 months later, Dylan received a message on his blog. Anonymous, vicious. "You think you're so special? You're just a snitch who got lucky. Wait until the spotlight fades. Then we'll see how brave you are." Then another. "Your dad can't protect you forever. Neither can your girlfriend's mom." Then a photo. Dylan leaving school, crosshairs photoshopped over his face. Reaper called Sheriff Mendoza immediately. "We're taking it seriously," she assured him. "Cybercrimes Division is tracking the IP address. But these cowards use VPNs, proxies. Could take weeks to find them." "We don't have weeks. My son is terrified." Dylan was indeed terrified. He stopped going to school assemblies, stopped checking his blog, started having nightmares again, waking up screaming about staples and scissors. "I can't do this anymore," he told Nina one night, crying in the diner's back room. "I thought it was over. I thought we won." "You did win. The boys who hurt you are in detention. But there's always more. More bullies, more kids getting hurt, more people who think violence is the answer." Dylan's voice rose. "What's the point? We can't save everyone." Nina pulled him close. "No, we can't. But we save who we can. One kid at a time. The way someone saved you. You saved me because I failed Emma. Because I couldn't live with failing another child." Nina wiped his tears. "You know what Emma's mom told me at the funeral? She said Emma would have wanted her death to mean something, to protect other kids. Did it? It does now. Through you, through hidden kindness, through every kid who speaks up because you showed them how." Nina's voice was fierce. "Emma's death broke me, but your survival is putting me back together." The cybercrimes unit traced the threatening messages to a student at Dylan's old school. 14-year-old boy, friend of Chase's older brother. He'd been harassing Dylan for months, planning something worse. "We found manifestos on his computer," Sheriff Mendoza told Reaper. "Plans for a physical attack. He'd been watching Dylan's schedule, knew his routes." Reaper's blood ran cold. "Is he in custody?" "Yes, psych evaluation ordered. His parents are cooperating." Mendoza paused. "Mr. Sullivan, this isn't going to stop. Dylan's high profile now. There will always be someone angry about what he represents. So what do I do? Hide him? Pull him out of everything he's built? Or you teach him to live with it? Teach him that fear doesn't mean stop. It means be careful and keep going." That night, Reaper sat with Dylan in the garage where this all started. "I can't promise nobody will ever try to hurt you again," Reaper said. "I wish I could, but the world's full of broken people passing their pain around. So I just accept it? No, you accept that evil exists and you choose to fight it anyway." Reaper put his arm around his son. "You know what real courage is? It's not being unafraid. It's being scared and doing the right thing anyway. Like you going to Hendricks' house and not hurting him? Yeah, like that. Every part of me wanted blood, but you needed me to be better." Reaper's voice roughened. "You made me better, Dylan. Every day you make me choose different. I'm tired of being brave." "I know, buddy. I know." They sat in silence, the familiar smell of motor oil and metal surrounding them. Finally, Dylan spoke. "I want to do the gallery show, the one at the art center downtown. They asked 6 months ago and I said, no." "You sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." The gallery show opened 3 weeks later. Hidden Kindness, A Journey Through Pain to Hope, featured 60 of Dylan's photographs. The homeless man sharing food, Father Rodriguez counseling a teenager, Nina reading to children, Reaper teaching mechanics to at-risk youth, Jake crying in his jumpsuit. And new photos, Sophie, the girl from the assembly, now smiling, leading her own support group. Marcus Chen volunteering at Hidden Kindness, honoring his brother's redemption by helping others. Dr. Okafor implementing new school policies. The community center packed with kids healing together. The opening night was chaos. Media everywhere, art collectors, school administrators, parents, and kids. So many kids who'd been helped by Hidden Kindness, coming to show support. Mayor Harrison gave a speech. Dylan Sullivan took the worst thing that ever happened to him and transformed it into hope for thousands. He showed us that one person can change everything. But the most powerful moment came from an unexpected guest. Chase Hendricks' mother. She approached Dylan slowly, her face ravaged by grief and shame. "I need to say something," she said, her voice shaking. "And you don't have to listen. You don't owe me anything." Dylan looked at his father. Reaper nodded. "My son is a monster. I made him that monster." Mrs. Hendrick's tears fell freely. "I saw the signs. The cruelty to animals when he was little. The way he talked about kids at school. The violent video games. The anger. The entitlement. I saw it all and told myself boys will be boys. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know it wasn't your fault. Nothing you did made you deserve what happened." Mrs. Hendricks pulled out an envelope. "Chase wrote you a letter. His therapist suggested it as part of his treatment. He wanted me to give it to you." Dylan took the letter but didn't open it. "Is he getting better?" Dylan asked. "Is he changing?" "I don't know. He's in therapy 5 days a week, medication for impulse control, anger management classes." Mrs. Hendrick's voice broke. "But I don't know if sorry can fix what he broke." "Maybe not, but trying is better than not trying." After she left, Nina found Dylan staring at Chase's letter. "You going to read it?" "Eventually. Not today." Dylan set it aside. "Today's about moving forward, not looking back." The gallery show ran for 6 weeks, attracting over 5,000 visitors. 3 of Dylan's photographs sold, the money donated to Hidden Kindness. A publisher from New York offered a book deal. A documentary filmmaker wanted to tell Dylan's story. But the real impact was quieter. A mother in Ohio saw Dylan's photos online and recognized her son's withdrawn behavior. Got him help before he reached crisis point. A teacher in Tennessee implemented Hidden Kindness principles in her classroom. Bullying incidents dropped 70%. A school board in Arizona adopted Dylan's See Something, Say Something protocol. Mandatory reporting for all staff, no exceptions. 1 year after the trial, Hidden Kindness operated in 43 schools across 6 states. Over 2,000 kids had gone through the program. Suicide rates among participating students dropped 42%. Bullying reports increased because kids finally felt safe speaking up. And Dylan? He was 13 now, taller, his hair fully grown back, scars visible only if you knew to look for them. He still photographed kindness, still spoke at schools, still answered calls from scared kids at 2 in the morning. But he also laughed, played video games, had friends, went to movies, lived like a normal teenager, except he wasn't normal. He was extraordinary. Reaper watched his son present at a state education conference, speaking to 500 administrators about trauma-informed practices, and felt his throat tighten. "Your mom would be proud," he said afterward. Dylan looked at him, surprised. Reaper rarely mentioned her. "You think so?" "I know so. She always said you had a gentle soul, that it would either break you or change the world." Reaper's voice cracked. "Guess we know which one happened." "I almost broke, though, a lot of times." "But you didn't, and that's what matters." Nina joined them, sliding her hand into Reaper's. They'd been together officially for 6 months now, taking it slow, building something real. "Emma's mom called me today," Nina said softly. "She saw Dylan's documentary, said it was like watching her daughter's death finally mean something." "What did you say?" "That Emma saved Dylan by teaching me to pay attention, that her life mattered, that I'd spend the rest of mine making sure no other parent has to bury their child because adults looked away." Dylan hugged her tight. "You saved me, Nina. You and Dad. You chose to see when everyone else was blind." The 3 of them stood together in the conference center lobby, this unlikely family forged from trauma and healing. 2 months later, Jake Chen was released from juvenile detention. Early release for good behavior and exceptional progress in therapy. He showed up at Hidden Kindness, nervous and thin, asking if he could volunteer. "I don't expect forgiveness," he told Dylan. "I just want to help. Want to spend my life making sure no kid becomes what I was." Dylan studied him for a long moment, then extended his hand. "Welcome to the team." Jake's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? But you're on probation with me too. Mess up once, you're gone. I won't. I swear I won't. Jake became one of Hidden Kindness's most powerful advocates. He spoke at schools about the psychology of bullying, about how hurt people, about breaking cycles. His testimony was raw, honest, brutal. Kids listened because he'd been where they were. Tyler Morrison, released 6 months later, joined them too. Then slowly, carefully, other reformed bullies. Kids who'd learned better, who wanted to do better. We're not just helping victims anymore, Nina said at a staff meeting. We're preventing future ones by rehabilitating the hurt kids before they become hurtful. It was revolutionary, and it was working. 3 years after that terrible day in the diner, when Nina first felt those staples, Dylan stood at his high school graduation. Valedictorian. Full scholarship to NYU for photography and social justice. His speech was short, direct, powerful. I survived because one waitress paid attention, because my father chose love over revenge, because a community decided enough was enough. Dylan looked out at the crowd. But thousands of kids don't survive. They don't have a Nina or a Marcus or a Hidden Kindness. They suffer in silence until silence becomes permanent. He paused, letting the weight of that sink in. So here's what I'm asking you. See the quiet kids. Notice when someone's hurting. Don't look away because it's uncomfortable or not your problem. Be the person who pays attention. Be the adult who believes. Be the friend who stands up. Because silence protects the wrong people, and speaking up saves lives. The crowd rose in standing ovation. After the ceremony, Reaper hugged his son tight. I'm proud of you, Dylan. Prouder than I've ever been of anything. Even your motorcycle? Reaper laughed. Even my motorcycle. Nina wiped her eyes. Emma would be your age now, would have graduated today. Then this is for her too, Dylan said. Everything we built. It's for Emma and every kid like her, every kid like me. That night at Lou's Diner, where it all started, they celebrated with chocolate cream pie and too much coffee. Lou came out from the kitchen, his weathered face soft with emotion. You changed this town, kid. Changed a lot of towns. We all did it together. Nah, you started it. You had the courage to speak up when speaking up was the hardest thing in the world. Lou squeezed Dylan's shoulder. That's heroism right there. 5 years later, Hidden Kindness operated in all 50 states and 12 countries. Dylan, now a professional photographer and activist, traveled the world documenting resilience. Nina ran the organization full-time, her social work license reinstated, her guilt over Emma transformed into purpose. Reaper managed logistics and finances. His old Brotherhood brothers now volunteers teaching at-risk youth trades and skills. Jake worked as a counselor, specializing in bully rehabilitation. Tyler became a teacher, creating safe classrooms. Even Chase, released at 21 after 7 years of intensive treatment, quietly volunteered at a crisis hotline. His identity protected, his redemption uncertain, but ongoing. The scars remained. They always would. Dylan still had nightmares sometimes, still touched his scalp unconsciously when stressed, still carried the weight of what happened. But he also carried hope. Because Hidden Kindness had saved 47,000 lives, one for every staple that had been driven into his head. 47,000 kids who spoke up, got help, survived. Because bullying reports were up 70% nationwide, meaning kids finally felt safe telling the truth. Because suicide rates among youth in Hidden Kindness programs dropped 63%. Because one waitress had paid attention when everyone else looked away. Because one father had chosen healing over vengeance. Because one boy had turned his suffering into salvation for thousands. On the 10th anniversary of Hidden Kindness, Dylan returned to Millbrook. The town had changed. Dr. Okafor was now superintendent. The community center was named in Emma's honor. Every school had trained counselors and mandatory reporting protocols. Dylan stood in Lou's diner, in the same booth where Nina had first touched his hair and discovered the truth. The booth where his healing began. Nina and Reaper sat across from him, older now, gray in their hair, but their eyes still bright with love and purpose. "We did it," Dylan said softly. "We actually did it." "No, son," Reaper said. "You did it. You chose to speak instead of disappear. You chose kindness instead of bitterness. You chose to save others instead of just saving yourself." Nina pulled out a photograph. Emma, age 9, smiling at the camera. Dylan had never seen it before. "She deserved to live," Nina said, tears streaming down her face. "She deserved everything you've built." Then we built it for her, and we keep building it for every Emma out there, every Dylan, every kid suffering in silence. Dylan raised his camera, capturing this moment. Nina and Reaper, hands intertwined, the diner booth that had witnessed the beginning of everything, the light streaming through the window, golden and warm and full of promise. He titled the photograph later, "Where Silence Ended and Hope Began," because that's what hidden kindness was, what it would always be, the place where suffering transformed into strength, where one person's courage sparked a revolution, where silence ended and countless voices rose up, demanding to be heard, refusing to be invisible, choosing to survive. And survive they did. Every single one of them. Because speaking up saves lives, breaking silence changes worlds, and one person's choice to be brave can create hope for millions. One act of kindness, one moment of courage, one voice refusing to stay silent at a time.